Long ago, after the Great War of the Ring, peace returned to Middle-earth. The Shire was as green and cheerful as ever, and hobbits went back to their favorite activities, eating 6 meals a day, growing enormous pumpkins, and throwing parties that lasted until dawn. But among them was one unusual hobbit named Bungo Baggins Jr. Unlike most hobbits, who enjoyed comfortable holes and afternoon naps, Bungo was famous for one thing: being stubborn. Once he made up his mind about something, not even a troll could change it. One bright morning, Bungo sat outside his round green door, frowning at the horizon. For there, right in front of his farm, stood 2 giant hills. They blocked the morning sunlight, cast long shadows on his vegetable garden, and made his carrots grow all twisted. "These hills are nothing but trouble," Bungo declared, stamping his hairy foot. "If they weren't here, my garden would get full sun, and my cabbages would be as big as barrels. I shall simply move them away." His neighbors laughed so hard that they nearly spilled their mugs of ale. "Move the hills," cried Daisy Proudfoot. "Why, even the dwarves with their hammers couldn't do that." "You're only 3 feet tall, cousin," chuckled Ponto. "How could you possibly move a mountain?" But Bungo wasn't listening. He grabbed a shovel, marched to the foot of the nearest hill, and began digging. At first, he shoveled dirt into a wheelbarrow and rolled it to the Brandywine River. The work was slow, and by lunchtime, he had moved no more than a small mound. His arms ached, his feet were sore. But Bungo only said, "A hill may be high, but my will is higher." Every day, he dug. In rain, in sun, in fog so thick he couldn't see his own toes, he kept digging. Neighbors stopped by to shake their heads. "Foolish hobbit," they muttered. "He'll never finish before second breakfast, much less in his lifetime." But Bungo smiled, wiped the sweat from his brow, and kept going. One evening, as the fireflies blinked and the stars sparkled, a tall figure appeared on the road. It was none other than Gandalf the Grey, though his robes were now patched from many adventures, and his staff looked more knobby than ever. "Good evening, Bungo," said Gandalf, leaning on his staff. "Why are you hacking away at this poor hill?" Bungo explained with great determination how the hills blocked his sunlight and ruined his vegetables. "So, I shall move them, little by little, until my garden is free." Gandalf stroked his long beard and chuckled. "Most hobbits would plant mushrooms in the shade instead of moving the mountain. But your stubbornness reminds me of an old tale from the East, the story of the foolish old man who moved mountains. Perhaps you will prove just as wise or just as foolish." Bungo only grinned. "Foolish or wise, the hill won't move unless I dig." Gandalf laughed heartily. "Very well, hobbit, I shall not stop you. Sometimes even foolishness can work wonders." And with that, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. At first, Bungo worked alone. But soon, a curious dwarf named Gimli Ironfoot, son of Gloin, stopped by on his travels. "What's this? A hobbit digging at stone. Now that is unusual," Gimli exclaimed. Bungo explained his mission. To his surprise, Gimli clapped his hands. "Ha! You remind me of my kin. We dwarves also dig tunnels and carve halls from mountains. Very well, I shall lend you my axe." And so Gimli began to hack at the rocks, singing loud dwarven songs that echoed through the valley. Later, a company of elves from Rivendell passed by. They saw the determined hobbit and the cheerful dwarf, and could not help but smile, out of kindness or perhaps a little amusement. They sang songs to lighten the work and even used a bit of magic to lift the heavier stones. Before long, even hobbit children from the Shire joined in, carrying pebbles and cheering Bungo on. What once seemed impossible slowly became possible. The hills grew smaller, the valley grew brighter, and Bungo's garden flourished like never before. But not all were pleased. Deep in the far lands, remnants of Sauron's servants still lingered. A wraith-like spirit, thin as smoke, watched Bungo's efforts and hissed in anger. "Foolish Hobbit. If you move the hills, travelers will see far and wide. No shadows to hide in. This cannot be allowed." The spirit whispered into the wind, sending storms and rains to slow the digging. But Bungo did not stop. He tied ropes around his waist to keep from slipping, and he kept digging even in the mud. When a great wind toppled his wheelbarrow, he simply built a sturdier cart. "A storm may knock me down," he said, "but it cannot keep me down." Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks. You are awesome. Years passed. Bungo grew older, his back bent, and his hair turned as white as the snow on the misty mountains. Still, he worked. His children, and later his grandchildren, took up his shovels and continued the task. One night, as the moon shone full and silver, the great eagles of the Valar swooped down from the heavens. Their leader, Gwahir, the Wind Lord, perched upon the hill and spoke in a voice like thunder. "Small Hobbit, your determination has reached even the ears of the Valar beyond the sea. If you and your kin can labor for generations without giving up, then surely we can lend our wings. The hills that block your garden shall be carried away." And with a mighty beat of their wings, the eagles lifted the remaining stones and carried them far across Middle-earth, scattering them into the sea. When morning came, the valley lay open and bright. The sun shone directly upon Bungo's garden, and the vegetables grew larger than ever before. His cabbages were so enormous that they needed wagons to carry them, and his pumpkins could be hollowed out and used as boats. When the neighbors saw what had happened, they were astonished. "We thought you foolish, Bungo, but you were wiser than all of us. Your persistence moved mountains." Bungo only chuckled and patted the earth with his spade. Not foolish, not wise, just stubborn enough never to give up. The moral of the story: from that day onward, hobbits told the tale of Bungo the Stubborn, who proved that even the smallest folk could achieve the greatest deeds, if they worked tirelessly, day after day, without losing hope. Did you enjoy the story? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. See you in our next video.